I'm Rena Danley, and welcome to Church Spotlight. Today we are in Wade, Mississippi at New Hope Assembly of God, and joining me is their pastor, Rob Reiser. Brother Rob, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having us. Appreciate being with you.
Thank you. I understand that you're about to celebrate your first anniversary as pastor here at New Hope, so maybe you could share with us a couple of your experiences in that short time.
Well, we've just fallen in love with the church since day one, and one of the interesting things about the church that we've learned as we've been here is that a lot of the people here are pastors' kids themselves, as I am, and so that's been neat, and just have really found a home here with the love and concern for our family and for our children, and just feels like we were meant to be here.
Right. So when did the journey begin? I mean, because I know that even though you've been here a short time, you've been in the ministry a lot longer than that.
Right. Well, I was a youth pastor in Goshen for many years, for 12 years there with David Watson at Liberty Assembly. And it was on a Sunday morning that he was preaching about turning to the next chapter in your life. And God spoke to me that morning and to my wife, and it was like, you know how when your wife's thinking the same thing you are, and you can nod and look at her, and we both knew that God was moving us from being youth pastors at that time to senior pastors. And so from there we went to Cleveland, Mississippi, and spent 3 years in Cleveland, Mississippi. And then in July of last year was talking with the youth pastor here at the church, and we have known each other for years and things. And she said, how long do you guys plan on staying up there? I said, well, we're actually looking to come back home. And so she said, well, you know, our pastor just resigned a few months ago, and it was just neat how God aligned it all and put it all into place. And so I started making calls to the board and things, and it just all fell into place and in line. And so in November, we'll have been here a full year.
Right. God just put all the pieces together and brought you back home, so, you know, gave you the desires of your heart.
Right, yes. And my mom says it sure doesn't hurt that Grandma and Grandpa are close with the grandkids as well.
Of course.
So that has helped.
When you mentioned that you are a PK, so he is the pastor at Tanner Williams Assembly of God, and he has been there for several years too. So a great line of character there.
Right, right.
You know.
And it's been, you know, they always say to follow in my dad's shoes, but my dad has always encouraged me that you got your own shoes to walk in. And so he's an encouragement, both him and my mom, and I can lean on them, you know, for help and things. But he's always said, you got your own shoes to walk in. And so that's been a comforting coming from my dad growing up in ministry and things. Right.
Well, you don't want to be compared to, and you don't want to have to fill his shoes, you know, so you are your own.
Right. Well, I remember first time somebody that had heard my dad preach and then heard me, he said, you don't preach like your dad. And I said, nope, we may have been from the same cloth, but it's two different styles, and so, but you know, it works, and we have our different ways of ministering and things, but it works out for both of us. So.
Right, right. Well, what is your style of ministry?
I'm more of a personal, one-on-one. I enjoy getting to meet folks and talk with folks and learn more about them, let them learn, you know, more about me, myself. On Sunday mornings, I preach. My dad, I always tease my dad and tell him he's long-winded, and but I preach about 30-minute sermon, 30 to 40-minute sermon. You know, God does move and it lasts longer and things, but I want to get a central theme across to them, a main idea for the day or whatever the case might be, and make it relational. How does it fit into everyday life? And sometimes, you know, we get so carried away with the doctrine and theology, which is good. We need those things. At the same time, we've got to relate the scriptures to our daily lives. How does that fit into what I'm dealing with for some that work at the shipyards or some that might work at the gas station? How does that scripture verse fit into their lives versus just one general way across the board?
Yeah, right. Well, and the scripture is very relevant to our lives, and we do need to be reminded of that although it was written so many years ago, it's very relevant to everything that we face in our society and our generation.
And we last several Sunday mornings have been talking about hearing God's voice and how sometimes you can hear it in the most unlikely of places. And just to learn to trust His voice and to know okay, God, I can do something with what I hear. It's not just that I hear your voice, but what do you want me to do with what you've told me to do? And how do you want me to interact or help others? And our theme for the church for this year is to love God and to love people in one accord. That's our central theme for the year. And it's true, if we're going to love His people, we've got to love Him and then work together in unity. So that's been a big part of our church theme for this year, is unity.
Right, right. And besides what you do on Sunday morning, how are you carrying out that theme?
Well, one way I do is I go around to local high schools, and I did this as a youth pastor. And I guess it's one way that I can stay in touch with youth now that I'm a senior pastor. But I go to the football teams on Friday nights and share devotion with them, and travel with some of the teams sometimes, the local area high schools, and just to share with them and to let them know that, a pastor can come into their world and relate to them. And so I've had opportunities to pray with coaches and players, and God has just opened up that door very much to in regards to ministering the gospel. And in the last 10 years of doing that, we've seen about 5 or 6 coaches get saved and invite Jesus Christ into their heart and life. And so, if I'm telling my people to do something, to go out into the community and things, I got to be willing to do that as a pastor.
Sure.
And I can't ask, and I always tell them, I said, I'm not asking you as a church to do what I wouldn't do myself. And so I get out into the community in that way. And I've been fortunate enough several times in the East Central community to pray at football games for the little kids, and the ball games and things at the park, at Lumcumbus Park. And so it's been fun doing that.
Yeah. Well, and it's all about forming that relationship. Like you said, going into their world and forming the relationship. And then you can be His hands extended. Then you can plant the seeds of God's love in their life just by being there. Right.
Well, it's old statement, but sometimes people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. And so we try and love them where they're at. And somebody come to church one time and said, "Well, Pastor, I'm sorry I'm not dressed appropriate." And I said, "I'm just glad you're here. I'd rather have you here, and I let God's word take care of that. Let the presence of God take care of that in their lives versus being told that you have to wear this or wear that. We're not into that here. We're just glad you come. Let God do the correcting in our lives versus man trying to do it."
Right. That reminds me of a saying, maybe you can help me with it, something about we're to catch the fish, but it's up to Jesus to clean them. So that's the same concept. Well, there's more I know we want to get into about all that's going on here at New Hope, but let's take a break real quick. There's more Church Spotlight when we return. Welcome back to Church Spotlight. Joining me today is Rob Reiser, pastor of New Hope Assembly of God. And we've been talking about the fact that you're about to celebrate your first year anniversary here. So when you walked through the doors, what was your vision that God had given you for this church?
Well, it was to reach the lost. And I know that can sound cliche amongst pastors and things, but it's so easy, and we open the doors to anybody, but I really want to see the lost saved. And I know what it was, even growing up in a pastor's home, being lost for a time in my life. I went through the motions and did the religious duty, so to speak, but I was lost inside myself. So I want to reach the lost and the hurting and minister to them. And so my heart really is for us as a church is to get involved in our community. And it's not always about putting New Hope first, although we're proud of our church, but we want to help the community and let the community know that New Hope is a place of hope for them.
Right. And
to spend time ministering to their individual needs, and many times of providing a meal for a family, or just being there when they've lost a loved one. Those types of things that's all important in building and growing the church, is to be there for them. Not just what we do on Sundays, that's important, or Wednesday nights, but to be there, in their daily life, to help them on a Monday or a Tuesday when they're struggling.
Right. And you've got to make yourself available to do that. And I know that not one man can do that. You have to have staff, and you have to have the congregation that's behind you that shares that vision and helps you carry that out. So what about the staff here? Do you have a good bit of staff that helps you?
We got the best. I tease and a little bit facetious, but we have the best. Davey Peace is our worship leader, and what's neat about Davey is just, well, obviously loves the Lord, but has the ability to just lead us in worship every Sunday morning. And something that our hearts really connected on was that we have once a quarter, it's called a night of worship, where we don't have preaching or a set agenda, but Davey just leads us into worship and spending time in God's presence. And it's wonderful to do that. And then also Miss Paige Watson leads our youth and doing a wonderful job there. And when we came, there was anywhere from 8 to 10 kids, but last Wednesday night they had 35. And in fact, they just got back a few weeks ago from the Ramp, Karen Wheaton's ministry up in Hamilton, Alabama, and it has just set them on fire. And youth groups get that way. So, they go to camps or conventions and things, and they get stirred. But our kids have been on fire ever since they've come back from that. And they made a commitment to sit in the first 3 rows of the sanctuary. And so, that's an encouragement to a pastor as well, that the young people, and it's really encouraged some of our older members as well to in worship and things. And then also Miss Lori Mormon is doing our children's church and does a fantastic job. We don't get to see her much on Sundays because she's back in children's church and things, but doing a wonderful job. And we have a ministry called Trunk or Treat coming up here on the Sunday night, the 30th of October, and where we're going to decorate the back ends of the trunks of our cars and things, and hand out candy and have hot dogs and hamburgers and things for the people in the community, but to give the kids a good alternative to Halloween.
Right, and that's part about putting your words into action and being there for the community and letting them know that they are welcome, and it's not about what they can do for the church, but what the church can do for them. And I do mean the church. I don't mean a building. It
was so nice, sometimes when a new pastor comes in, you're learning a whole new staff, and all of our hearts with all the youth, children, and music have just blended so well. It's like God meant for us to be together. And it's just everything clicks, and I know it sounds maybe different, but we haven't had a cross word. It's been so good to work with folks that are like-minded, and that really kind of a part of our theme for the year, and having unity is we're working together in unity as a staff, and it works really well to just know we're all on this same page. And I can look over at Davey on a Sunday morning during worship service and nod, and he nods, and we know to keep going, and not a word has to be spoken. And so it's just neat to have that kindred spirit together, that we can worship and minister, but at the same time have a great working relationship.
And that trickles down into the congregation. And
absolutely. And if there's not unity with the staff, the congregation knows that. And but it's so great. Everybody has been so supportive in the just shy of a year that we've been here, that it just feels like family. And we're still learning names and getting to know people and things, but it's good. We consider them family, so it's really great to be here.
Is God bringing a lot of people in, a lot of new faces?
Well, in the last few weeks we've had several. It's not like a mass group walking in, but we've had a few families here and there, and God's really been moving. You always say Sunday night's your core crowd or your core group of people. And Sunday nights, in the last 3 weeks, we've had people get healed from the altars, and they've walked away from the altars different than the way they walked up to the altars. And last Sunday night, I was given an altar call, and one gentleman came running down to the altars and gave his heart and life to the Lord. I didn't have to, wasn't that, repeat this prayer after me. He knew God's presence moving in here, and he asked God to forgive him before anybody ever even laid a hand on him and prayed for him. So it's just neat to see, especially on Sunday nights, God is really doing some good stuff and some wonderful things in people's lives.
Yeah. And don't you think that, and find that that's refreshing when a lot of churches are changing their normal scheduling, the Sunday morning, Sunday night, and they do offer other nights, just like you said, you do the worship, quarterly. But don't you find that that's refreshing, that there's still a body of people that still desire and hunger for more of God, and they're willing to come to church on a Sunday night and join in corporate worship, and I find that's refreshing.
Well, one of the things people have asked, you still have Sunday nights? And I said, well, Sunday nights are so vital. I remember them as a kid, and sometimes on Sunday nights, Mom and Dad, we went to church with a pillow and a blanket, and we'd fell asleep under a pew.
Because you didn't know how long you'd be.
You didn't know how long we were going to be there. And God is just moving so miraculous. I mean, He's moving on Sunday mornings too, but he's moving so well. And I guess there's just a freedom on Sunday nights that you can kind of let who you are down, or you can let that wall down and just let God move in your heart and your life and minister to folks.
I always felt the same way. Sunday morning, not that we did not have wonderful services, but Sunday night was just different. You just did not feel the maybe the pressure or whatever. Like I said, you just could let your hair down, and you could just really allow the freedom of God to reign.
Well, you know, as a minister, I have my sermons ready and things, you know, and you're ready to go, and God moves in a different direction or something. And but it's neat to see that we need those times. The Word is of utmost importance, yes. But there are those times where we need to be in the altars praying and seeking God. And well, like Sunday night, people getting healed, and a gentleman giving his heart and life to the Lord and rededicating his life. That's what it's all about. You know, and that's part of building relationships. And then for him to give me a hug, not that I did it, God of course did the work in his life, but to give me a hug and say, thank you, Pastor, for being obedient to God's voice. And you know, as a minister, you can get so tied into doing a sermon, or you have to do your sermon, and you need to do your sermon. I mean, it's part of the job, but also to allow the Spirit to have way to move in your lives and to touch people like you did Sunday night was really special. That's
right. It's all about God's agenda, not our own, right?
Yep. And well, I know I was telling the people Sunday morning, you know, I said, I've preached to you for several weeks on hearing God's voice, and so I better start hearing, I better start listening when I'm hearing it too. And so he just had a different direction for us the last several Sunday nights with people getting healed. And in fact, one lady, we've been praying for people with glasses, and prayed for her, and she's able to see now without the glasses being on. It's not a full 20/20 vision, but she can see clearer now than when she had. And so God's just doing some wonderful miracles in people's lives. It's very exciting to be a part of that.
Right. Bottom line, God's still moving, and that's always exciting to hear about. I love it. It's catching on.
Right. Well, and then too, when you know people see God moving in the service, they see, well, the book is real. The Word is real.
Sure.
They're seeing what we're reading about. And I remember a few Sundays ago I preached a sermon about, let's not just read the book, let's live it.
Yeah.
Let's live God's Word in action in front of people. And that's all a part of our theme, you know, getting out in the community. And let's not just hear that God healed somebody. Let's see God heal somebody by laying on of hands or praying for folks and things. So God has been really good to us here at New Hope.
Right. And you know, not only can it happen right here in the altar where we are set up right now, but it can happen outside those walls.
Oh, very much so.
And we have to carry that same spirit.
Well, you know, over 80% of Jesus' ministry was outside of the walls of the church or the synagogue. It was out in the community.
Right.
And that's where our focus on ministry needs to be, is out in the community, reaching people. Yes, we reach them here at church. That's a great place to reach them. But we want to reach them out in the community and allow them to know that God can meet them where they're at.
That's right. More exciting things from New Hope Assembly and Pastor Rob when we return. Welcome back to Church Spotlight. Brother Rob is here with New Hope Assembly of God, and I'd like for you to give us your service times.
Sunday mornings we start serving breakfast at 9 a.m. And so if you'd like to come and have a good breakfast, we do that at 9 a.m. Sunday school is at 9:45. And morning worship is at 10:45. And then we also have Sunday evenings at 6, and Wednesday night Bible study and youth and Royal Rangers and Missionettes at 7 o'clock on Wednesday nights.
Okay. So you have breakfast every single Sunday morning?
Every single Sunday morning we serve breakfast, and you won't find nothing finer. It's good. We have some wonderful people back there working, serving breakfast, and it's a good way for people that don't know others. They can come and have breakfast, and especially those get their kids ready. It's hard to get everybody ready for church Sunday morning and then try to feed them as well, and so they can come and have a good breakfast on us Sunday mornings as well.
At my house on Sunday morning, it's to each his own. You know, it's a mad dash to get out of the door on time. So, you know, that's pretty neat. That's the first time I've heard of a church doing it every single Sunday. So that's a really neat ministry.
It's a good ministry too, because we've had people come that, you have breakfast, and so they come and then they, you know, and have a good time in the services as well.
Right. I'd like to ask you what maybe one of your favorite scriptures.
Always, you know, and it's kind of maybe a lot of people have this one, but Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Mainly because I had a hard time growing up in school and just didn't do well, and and so it was a struggle. And to know that God can give me the strength to do it, and able to finish high school and to put myself through Bible college, and to be a pastor, and to do a good job at it. I got to have God's strength to do that. And I can't do it without God. Can't do it by myself, or can't do it because so and so wanted me to be a pastor. I got to do it because God's strength. He gives me the strength to do it. And so that one's always been a very important scripture in my life, to know that I've got to have His strength to do this. And I just can't get behind the pulpit on a Sunday morning, or even have the right words to say, if I don't have God's strength and His Spirit operating in my own personal life.
Right, right. Are you a family man?
I am. I've been married for 15 years now to my wife Annette, and met her at Bible College in Minneapolis at North Central University. And we have
That's the accent.
That's the accent, yes. And I was born and raised in Minnesota, but have spent more of my life in Mississippi than anywhere now, so that's where the accent comes from. And we have 3 children. Jacob is 12, Joel is 10, and Julianne is 7. And so they're all growing, and it's kind of funny with the older ones now. You don't buy the kids meals like you used to when you go out.
Right.
They're eating just as good as the rest of us, and so. But we have a wonderful time as a family. Get to do a lot of stuff together, and so just enjoy being with my kids. And as a senior pastor now versus youth pastor, I get to spend a little bit more time with them, and so that's important to me.
Sure.
I need to minister to the church, but you know what? I not just a pastor to them. I need to be a dad to my kids.
That's
and
right.
A husband to my wife, and so. It's been a blessing to be able to do that.
Right, and it's so often as a pastor, you're on call 24/7. I mean, if something were to happen, a funeral or someone's sick, you're always called on, and so many times the family has to share you. So I think it's very important, that you've shared that about wanting to be a dad and wanting to be a husband.
And and we don't always get those moments. There's those times where we don't get to do what we thought we had planned, but we take those moments where we can just go do something as a family for an hour. It might be something as simple as getting a hamburger and a Coke to drink, and just sitting down talking and laughing and joking with each other as a family. But it's important that we have those times, because I'll never want my kids to grow up resenting the ministry.
Right.
I want it to be exciting for them to see God moving, and to know that Dad can still be a part of their lives as well as an entire congregation as well.
Right. And it's also important, I think, that they see that you're the same on the platform as you are at home, and that you always have time for them. I think that's great.
If you don't make time for your kids as a pastor, I don't ever want, like I said before, I want them to grow up resenting that. I want them to enjoy church. I want them to have a relationship with God themselves.
Right.
And a part of that is, that it's not all about the church. I've got to be a good dad and a good husband as well as a good pastor. I've got to include that in my ministry, in my life.
Right. So are you full-time here?
Yes, I'm full-time here, from sun up to sundown, so to speak. And but it's the easiest way to do ministry. And I know there's others that aren't able to do that all the time. But yes, I am full-time here at the church.
Yeah, there are a lot of pastors that are bivocational now. So I think that, like you said, it's tough to have to spread yourself so thin.
I've been very blessed to be able to be here full-time and be able to concentrate 100% on the work of the church, and in that versus having to try and split my time between another occupation.
Right. It's very evident. Brother Rob, I have enjoyed our interview today, and I've caught on to a little bit of your excitement, and I can feel the excitement in you sharing about all the things that God is doing right here at New Hope. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I thank you for watching. Be sure to watch next week as we spotlight another church making a difference. Until then, I'm Rena Danley.